What is going on, everybody? Today we have a first run review on the ASICS Gel Nimbus 27s that actually just released not too long ago. I would say that I think they released on January 10th, so a couple days ago. I actually just got back from a quick 3-mile run in this shoe for my first run, and I wanted to share my first impressions of the shoe with you guys, so let's get right into it. As always, we're going to start out with the outsole, and the outsole on the Nimbus 27 is pretty reminiscent to the outsole on the 26. I believe they took away some parts of the outsole to make the shoe a little bit lighter due to the increased stack height for this model. And it is an ASICS hybrid grip or hybrid ASICS grip. And right now, not raining in California, so I actually ran those 3 miles on asphalt, no rain, perfect weather, and surprisingly enough, the traction held up really well on the outsole. So outsole seems to be okay just from that first run. Don't know if it's gonna rain anytime soon. Where I live, so not sure if I'm going to be able to test these in wet conditions or in snowy conditions, but so far so good. As for durability, not even going to comment on that since I've only had 3 miles in the shoe. We'll see, I guess, once I put more miles onto the shoe, how the outsole holds up a little bit better. Moving on to the main event of the ASICS Nimbus 27, which is the cushioning, which is kind of what this shoe is known for. It is a max stack height shoe, so in my head, I'm comparing this to the New Balance More V5, maybe the Brooks Glycerin Max, a lot of these other high stack shoes that are going to really take care of your body, as well as be really good for recovery days or just genuinely walking around. As for specs on the shoe, I believe this is a 43.5 millimeter heel, dropping to whatever -8 of that is. So I think 35.5 millimeters in the forefoot. I'm going to fact check myself when I edit this video, but I believe they increased the stack height 1 or 2 millimeters from last year's model. Now, little disclaimer, I didn't run in the ASICS Gel Nimbus 26, which is last year's model of this. I did run in the Nimbus 25, so it's been 2 generations since I've ran in the Nimbus. But in the heel, we have one of the gel inserts that ASICS is really famous for in an FF Blast Plus carrier. I believe there's nothing in the forefoot, and overall, specs regardless. I think I also heard that there's a new FF Blast Plus midsole in this shoe, so it's a different compound than what they used previously. But regardless of specs, regardless of what they say in the marketing materials, I would say that this shoe is pretty soft and it was pretty comfortable in my first run. So my first run, I ran 3 miles, as I said, and first mile was actually a little bit of a recovery pace, which I think is what this shoe is going to shine in. So my 10-minute per mile pace, 10 to 11 minute per mile pace, very comfortable, soft, impact absorbent, really easy on the joints. Not the most stable shoe, I would say. It does have a decently wide platform, so you're not going to be teetering over on flat land, but there were a couple points where the ground was a little bit uneven, and I would say that maybe if you don't have the best ankles, or you're not trying to worry about where you're stepping, this shoe might not be the best if you run on a lot of uneven surfaces because of that high stack height. I feel like you can twist your ankle pretty easily or just, misstep. And since it's kind of high off the ground, you're going to feel like you're going to fall a little bit. So that's something to keep in mind. Might be a little niche, but thought it was worth mentioning. So yeah, on the slower paces, this shoe is pretty comfortable first impressions wise. And then when I started to pick up the pace for mile 2 and mile 3, I actually got down to a 7:20 pace per mile, which I would say, I don't know, I haven't really ran a 5K or a 10K, but I would say that that's around that type of pace. But around 7 minutes and 20 seconds, like for me, that's decently fast. And I felt that the shoe was able to kind of keep up with me. It's not meant for, speed work or picking up the pace, but it still didn't feel too bulky on my foot, as well as it didn't feel too sluggish. Now, I do want to note that I am 210 pounds. So maybe I am a bigger runner. So maybe that's why I also didn't feel that this shoe was super bulky. But if you are a little bit of a smaller runner, this shoe might feel a little bit bulkier for you. But typically, since I am a bigger runner, I don't mind picking up the pace in a lot of these bigger and higher stack shoes, just because I compress the foams a lot, and also just I feel ground feel almost in every shoe. So that's, I guess, moving on to my next point for the cushion setup. I did feel the ground Not too much actually, so it was pleasantly surprised, or I was pleasantly surprised that I wasn't able to feel the ground too much because this is a max cushion shoe. But in the forefoot, when I was picking up the pace, the foam did compress and I was able to feel a touch of ground feel. I would say it's similar to the New Balance More V5. New Balance More V5, after I put more miles in the shoe, I was able to get a little bit more ground feel, but these ones, since they're brand new, fresh out the box, I didn't have too much ground feel, but I can see these breaking in really nicely. So a couple things I do want to note about the cushion. It was soft. Not too soft where to the point where I felt unstable running on even surfaces, but like I said, if you run on a lot of uneven surfaces, that stability might be a little bit of an issue. And if you don't like running in high stack shoes, you're just not gonna like this shoe. I'm gonna be completely honest. But if you're a bigger runner like me, this could be an option to run, slower runs, as well as I think it can pick up the pace, but it wouldn't be my first option. So keep that in mind. I'm a little bit hesitant to say my opinion on the cushioning of the shoe, but I am going to break them in. There was a little bit of discomfort in the heel as well as a little bit discomfort in the forefoot, but I think that that's just also breaking in the shoe. So I'm slowly starting to break it in. Going to put more miles on the shoe before I give my kind of final thoughts on the cushion setup. And last but not least, we have the upper and the fit of the shoe. So touching on fit really quickly, I thought that these ran true to size. If you kind of base your sizing off of ASICS sizing, I would say whatever you wore in the Nova Blast 5 and whatever you maybe wore in the Super Blast 2, I think that that's exactly the same size you should get in the Nimbus 27. So they have been consistent with those three models. Nova Blast 4 for me ran a little bit long, but I think in general, even if you didn't wear ASICS before, going true to size won't hurt you. I do have a wider than average foot, and my wider than average foot did fit a normal size 12, which is my true size. There is a little bit of room in the toe box, which is always nice when you're wearing running shoes because feet do expand, especially during long runs. So that's something to keep in mind. But if you do like a snug and tight fit, maybe you could go half a size down if you have a more narrow to normal foot. But for me personally, since I have a wider foot, I didn't mind going true to size, and I felt like the room in the forefoot wasn't too big of a deal. I think it was good enough for when I do the long runs, and I think my feet will expand. So true to size, end of story. I think that that's the best way to go if you can't try on the shoe. The heel lockdown I think was okay. It wasn't the best, I would say. Maybe I have to break in the shoe a little bit more, but ASICS does put some nice heel cushion pillows in the back of the heel, which I think will do a better job at adapting to my foot shape and my heel shape over time once I tighten up the shoe and also break in the upper. So heel lockdown wasn't perfect, but it wasn't bad at all. And then the knitted tongue that's also gusseted on this shoe is actually pretty comfortable. It's a really thin and lightweight tongue, and there are some perforations for breathability. And then the upper, the mesh upper, I don't know if this is exactly a mesh upper. It feels a little bit more plasticky, even more plasticky than the Nova Blast 5, which I thought was a little bit plasticky already. Not the biggest fan of this material. It's kind of like a mesh, but mixed with a little bit of fuse, and it doesn't feel the softest when you touch it. But honestly, when you put it on your foot, you're not really going to notice it too much. I didn't really notice it too much. I did notice that compared to the most recent shoes that I reviewed, the Saucony Ride 18s, ventilation on this shoe is definitely not as good as those, but I mean, it's not really an apples to apples comparison because the Saucony Ride 18 is a completely different shoe. But that's just something that I noticed while I was running. So even when it was windier today on my short little run, I didn't feel the wind in my toes as much. Now there is some breathability in the tongue, so I'd say, right now ventilation is a little bit below average, if not average. So if that's something that you really value in a shoe, then maybe this shoe also isn't the one for you. But we'll see as I put more miles into the shoe, and once I formulate my real thoughts on the shoe in my full review, which will come soon. So overall, ASICS Nimbus 27 I thought performed really well just from a first run perspective, first impressions point of view. I think I need to break in the shoe a little bit more to obviously give my more formal thoughts or more finalized thoughts on the full review of the shoe. But so far, it's pretty promising. It seems like it's going to be a pretty comfortable shoe. Maybe a little bit versatile too. I wouldn't say it's the most versatile shoe, but then again, I don't think you're looking at this shoe if you're looking for a shoe that can really do speed work. This is definitely more of a max cushion shoe. So keep that in mind when you're considering this shoe. But overall, it seems to be pretty good, and stay tuned. I'll have the full review maybe in a week or two. I'm going to try to put more miles on the shoe before I give you guys my final thoughts. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for all your support, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.